It's always Friday at TGI Fridays, 3330 Veterans Boulevard in Metairie, corner of North Holland, where sportsNOLAtv originates from again this evening. And a pleasant good evening to you, Ken Trahan. Great to have you with us on a Monday night at Fridays. We love being here, and we love having you with us to talk about a number of things in the world of sports. Lots to discuss. The Saints, NFL free agency, Peyton Manning, the Voodoo, the NCAA basketball tournament, the Hornets, you name it, we've got it. And to break it all down, an expert panel of journalists, starting with Brian Alley Walsh of sportsNOLA.com. Brian.
Ken, it's always a pleasure to be here, and I know you're going to introduce our guest panelist here in a moment, but I don't recognize him, Kenny, because he's sitting upright. I only recognize him on the ground, lying down.
Because he can't stay in the pocket. He's got to run all over the place. Ultimately, you get hit when that happens. I'm just saying. But he ran pretty well. And by the way, he had a pretty good arm, too. But we'll get into that in just a moment, because it takes receivers to make quarterbacks look good. And Torrance Small made quarterbacks look good for a long time.
Hey, how we doing? Ken, how's everybody out there? Hey, March Madness, it did start this weekend. Ken, I tell you, it started this weekend.
How's Alcorn doing?
We have internal problems right now, but we will bounce back.
All right, just asking. Wanted to make sure. Interest of fair play, equal time. Our special guest panelist, of course, a former quarterback of the Shaw Eagles, the Ole Miss Rebels, the New Orleans Saints, and all parts in between. And always great to have John Forcade with us as well. John, good to see you.
All I'm going to say is this, folks. I'm thrilled to be back with the Three Stooges. Do less, do little, and do nothing. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
I think I got the better end of that deal. That's not a bad deal. He knows where his bread's buttered. I won't ask him back otherwise.
Do small instead of little. You know, can at least give him a last name.
Now that he's basically insulted all three of us, we can move on without him. No, it's okay, John. It is good to have you with us. And, of course, much to get into. Our hot seat topic later in the show will be all about Peyton Manning, who has made a decision, which we will get into in detail. Also, the New Orleans Hornets, they got a rare win, and we'll talk about, more importantly, the solidified nature of the franchise in this town with some great news from this past week. And the New Orleans Voodoo opening a season. Really exciting game. We'll show you some highlights from that and talk all about it. Plus, the New Orleans Saints and where they're going and what's to come, because a ruling is sure to come down from the NFL prior to the owners' meetings, which are coming up starting next week. So all of that and more. We've got it all, and we're ready to chomp at the bit. We can't wait. But we got to pay some bills, so we'll do that right now. sportsNOLAtv, TGI Fridays, Veterans Boulevard, corner of North Holland and Metairie, continues in just a moment here on WHNO Channel 20. Very interesting note there, and that Ben Grubbs will be the first-round draft choice, anchoring an offensive line position for the Saints since Jamal Brown. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, TGI Fridays, and I think that's very significant, Brian, when you look at the makeup of the Saints, and I think that plays into the thinking of what the Saints have been doing with this offensive line. They have done it with mid-round, late-round picks, and even free agents.
I agree, Kenny, and it speaks volumes about their mindset. You know, they've been able to post tremendous NFL records over Sean Payton's tenure here in New Orleans, and largely is because of number 9. He makes everybody better. John knows, being a quarterback, that with Drew's ability to get rid of the ball, make smart decisions, you don't have to hold that block for as long as you might with a lot of offensive linemen.
Well, my whole take of the whole thing situation is this: is they replaced one guy with another guy who's an all-pro, so they didn't lose anything on the offensive side of the football. I think they're just going to keep gelling right there. We've got a great asset with Grubbs coming in, taking care of Nick. So, hey, it worked out well for the Saints.
Yeah. Now, and that's the thing you said, replacement. That's something they did well the last couple of years. We replaced Reggie Bush with Darren Sproles, which I thought was a great move. And being able to get a Pro Bowl offensive lineman like Grubbs, I think was an excellent move. Because the one thing we did say about this team We had to keep that offensive line intact, and we had to get Colston back. They did that offensively. Now let's see what this team does defensively.
I think it's a very good point. They've had good contingency plans, good replacement plans. Got to be that way in the NFL. Cannot stand pat, and the Saints have done a pretty good job in that regard. Let's take a look at the unrestricted free agents that the Saints have to deal with. Of course, Colston back in the fold, Robert Meacham to San Diego, Carl Nix to Tampa Bay. Then you got the likes of Courtney Roby, John Gilmore, Torrey Humphrey, Pat McQuiston, Lee Torrance, Tracy Porter, Joe Lon Dunbar, Abraya Franklin, Sean Rogers, Turk McBride, Jeff Charleston, John Casey. Brian, you look at that list, who are the 2 or 3 keepers there in your mind?
Well, I've said all along, I think Joe Lon Dunbar is a key piece to the puzzle. He's not a marquee player, but he's the kind of player every team needs. And secondly, Tracy Porter is out visiting teams right now. I think with Vincent Jackson going to Tampa Bay, I think it's going to help the Saints put in focus Tracy's sense of need here staying in New Orleans. So we'll see what happens with that development.
How badly do they really want Tracy Porter, John?
Well, the situation is how much it's going to cost him to keep Tracy Porter. He's looking for the big payday. Does he get the big payday? If he wants the big payday, he can probably go somewhere else. The Saints would love to have him back, but I don't think they want to overpay the man, bring him back, because they got a lot of young defensive backs right now on this squad that I think can step in and do the job.
Franklin and Rogers, interesting guys. Size, maybe that's what Spagnuolo wants. At the same time, mixed bag with those guys in terms of what they brought to this team.
Yeah, we just haven't been getting the productions out of those guys that we were looking for. I think we need somebody on that defensive line, somebody that demands the double team, somebody that can come off the corner, put a little pressure on the edge, or somebody that's going to bring a push up the middle. We need some type of pressure put on the quarterback that will take the pressure off the defensive backs, where we can trust some of these younger defensive backs that we have.
Courtney Roby good enough to keep just as a gunner, Brian? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, I hate to use these terms, but he's just a guy, Kenny. You know, I think you can go replace, and he's from my alma mater, but he's a guy that they can replace, has made a contribution during his years here, but if they lose him, so be it.
Lee Torrance, John, is one of those guys that you like having on a team because whenever he's called upon, he does a solid job. He's always going to be that dime type of guy, but he might be affordable.
Well, that's the whole situation. Who's affordable, who's not affordable? I've always said this. There's so many players out there that play defensive back. You can go out and get somebody else's, I guess, leftovers they get rid of to be a backup. And basically, Torrance is just Lee's just a backup. And then you can find backups all throughout the NFL.
And where wide receivers are concerned, Torrance, the fact that Colston is back is great. He could have gotten more money elsewhere. He wanted to be here. And, of course, that means Robert Meacham leaves. You hate to see Robert leave, but the reality is he can be replaced, and they think Adrian Arrington has a chance to be able to do that.
I'm glad Colston came back. Three people we talked about that had to come back other than Drew was Colston. We said Nix, but we got Grubbs instead of him, and we said Sproles. Those 3. Everybody else, they're going to make better. I think we could bring another receiver in to help out with that.
Well, we talked about Ben Grubbs and him signing on with the Saints. Ben Grubbs coming from the Baltimore Ravens. 5 years, $36 million, a $10 million signing bonus, $16 million guaranteed. He's in his 5th year. He was a first-round pick, as alluded to, out of Auburn, and he made the Pro Bowl last year. Brian, how do you differentiate between Ben Grubbs and Carl Nix?
Well, the mere fact that Grubbs is coming from a Baltimore program that runs the ball well, they've done a good job of protecting Joe Flacco. The thing that you're missing is that continuity that Carl Nix brought to the team. But really, when you look at 1 and 2 in the free agent market for guards, Ben Grubbs was right there, and it's a great replacement for Carl Nix.
And Grubbs obviously was complicit. He wanted to be here. He signed very quickly, understanding the opportunity was there, the job was here, and there was a chance for a team to win. Speaking of Carl Nix, John, listen, all power to him. Get all the money you can. He's a great player. I thought his comments on the way out were ill-advised and frankly stupid, commenting about the Saints passing 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. I think they won a Super Bowl. I think they won 11 and 13 games the 2 years after that. I think they set all kinds of records for being the best offense in the history of the league this past year. And I think that given the tools that they have and where they play indoors, that you might want to pass the ball more than you run it. I'm just saying.
Oh, I totally agree. And I also think that the Saints drafted you to bring you on this football club. Didn't you remember that there, Mr. Nick? So overall, let's look at it this way. When you walk out the door, they always say, don't let the door hit you in the rear end when you left. You left here, you could have just took the money and shut up and go. But you know what? You got to play the Saints twice a year now.
And Torrance, he only played here 4 years, but I'd advocate Nick's for the Saints Hall of Fame. He was that good a player, and I have tremendous appreciation for what he did. But sometimes guys need to just shut up. You know, it's called maturity, right? At a young age, you probably would have said things the wrong way as well.
Yeah. What guys need to know, it's a business. You know, you have a lot of guys that want to come back at GMs. They want to make it more of a friendship thing, and it's not a friendship thing. It's a business. When you leave, you get paid for your services. It's a business.
Let's take a look at the visitors that the Saints have played host to or will play host to. Some of the names, according to various media reports. Roderick Bunkley, of course, big guy of the Denver Broncos. David Hawthorne, interesting player there. Joe Mays, but we expect him to be back with the Broncos. And Curtis Lofton, who was with the Falcons. Brian, anytime you have a chance to rate a division rival, you take a look at that, and he's a plug. He's a physical guy.
Yeah, Mays did re-sign with Denver,
yes.
And Lofton is a guy that, of course, you take away from an adversary within your division. And also, you know, you're talking about Hawthorne, who I think is probably the better of the players that were up in the graphics. So, you know, the key thing, guys, is they're addressing middle linebacker. Exactly. So what does that tell you?
Sure.
It just tells you that John Vilma perhaps either is going to have to restructure or it stays their number.
Yeah, and that you might not have Dunbar back, John.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you can get your middle linebacker, I think it's more or less getting you some other linebackers as well. Not just the middle linebacker, outside guys, but the object is they're going after linebackers more than they're going after nose tackles and defensive tackles. And the deal with Vilma, you don't know if he's going to be here. They don't want to keep a guy on the team that might get suspended for 4 weeks, and you got to have a guy spot to fill. So go get yourself a younger, a better linebacker that can replace him.
Money dictates, Torrance, and he makes money. And when he did not play last year, the Saints won every game he missed when Dunbar stepped in.
Oh, yes. When the production doesn't match the money, changes are made. So this is something that is expected.
Kenny, I tell you what, I think, and John speaks from experience, because when he finally left the Saints, they got a younger, faster, better quarterback as well.
Wow. You see what happens, John. You take shots at the man, and you're going to get some return fire.
He's used to taking shots.
Hey, it's tough, but when Moses speaks, you got to listen, folks.
Where's the staff?
Cast down that staff, my friend. Where are the tablets? When we return in just a moment, we'll turn our attention to NFL free agency. Of course, the biggest name out there, Peyton Manning. We'll talk about why he made the move he made. And of course, later on in the show, that will be our topic for the hot seat as well, as did he make the right decision? All of that and more when sportsNOLAtv continues from TGI Fridays in Veterans in Metairie. Our sportsNOLAtv trivia question of the evening. All 4 #1 seeds have advanced to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA basketball tournament. And our question is, when was the last time the Final Four included 4 #1 seeds? We've planted that seed. Let it take root, and we'll have an answer a little bit later in this show for you. sportsNOLAtv, TGI Fridays, 3330 Veterans Boulevard, corner of North Holland in Metairie. Our thanks to Ronnie Bouvier for having us here again. Good to see him in the house today. And NFL free agency continues to move along. And of course, the biggest item of all, the biggest domino of all, has finally dropped. Peyton Manning. Where is he going? The final 3. Which uniform did he look best in? Well, at least from his perspective, the answer is this one. The Denver Broncos navy blue uniform. As Peyton Manning has decided to go with the Denver Broncos, asking Tom Condon to make a deal for him. And of course, that is what is transpiring as we speak. All right, Brian, major fallout where this is concerned. We'll talk about whether it's the right or wrong decision later in the show. But in terms of fallout, he goes to Denver. That means Tim Tebow's out of a job. He's looking for somewhere. That means Matt Hasselbeck all of a sudden is still alive in Tennessee. It means Alex Smith is still alive in San Francisco, but Jim Harbaugh basically has to tell him, hey, we didn't really mean it. So stay here. Matt Flynn goes to Seattle. What's Miami going to do? All right, the fallout. Your take.
You know, Kenny, the interesting thing about this is Tom Condon represents Peyton Manning, Alex Smith, and Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, you've got to convince Alex Smith now to come back to San Francisco. Hey, you know, we had a chance to get a Hall of Fame quarterback, and that is true. And if Alex Smith takes that into consideration, he'll understand this is business. Whether or not he goes back to San Francisco is going to be interesting to see. But Tim Tebow, he's gone. He's on the block probably as soon as they dot the I's and cross the T's.
And Brian, who represents Drew Brees?
Yes, exactly.
I make that point.
No,
I make that point for a reason. This is a domino effect. And the first domino, the one that matters where Drew Brees and Saints fans are concerned, is Peyton Manning. Once that deal is done, trust me, the numbers will be in place. And the Saints will fully understand that, and so will Drew Brees and his agent. Torrance, the dominoes, as you see this with all this quarterback mishmash.
And that's what it's about. Unfortunately, a lot of guys were affected by this, and a lot of teams, a lot of fans were affected by this. But the bottom line is, it's a business. We talked about it early. It's a business. You become friends with guys, but at the bottom line, you get paid for your services. When they no longer need you, hey, you go on, you make friends with somebody else and get paid from someone else.
And John, if you're Matt Hasselbeck or you're Alex Smith or you're Tim Tebow, you can't take this personally. You just have to step forward and do what you need to do. In the case of two of them, they can stay where they were if they want to. Smith and Hasselbeck. In the case of Tebow, he'll have to move on.
Well, I think the Tebow situation is he's going to definitely move on. You're bringing in Manning. But the two other guys, Hasselbeck, he's going nowhere anyhow. He's at the end of his career. He might as well stay there. He understands the business deal. But Alex Smith is a wild card here. Like Brian said, this is the business. If I'm Alex Smith, I'm going to Miami and see what they offer me financially. If they give you more money than what the 49ers do, I'm going to Miami just to show Harbaugh and say, rubbing his face, now, Harbaugh, who do you have as a quarterback? Hey, I'm going to stick it to you.
Brian, on the other hand, he's comfortable in San Francisco, and he's got a team that's ready to break through and get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. If you're Alex Smith and you're trying to win a ring, you go back to San Francisco. And I really don't think there should be any mea culpas or anything like, we're sorry. This is a business, and Alex Smith is represented by a super agent in Tom Condon. I want to be Tom Condon. I want to work for Tom Condon. John Forcade is the only quarterback that Tom Condon doesn't represent.
Well, Torrance, here's one of the elements about all this that really not only piques my interest, but frankly gets me miffed. I watched some national, and I won't name names, national commentators, journalists, call them what you may, listen to them and see them. And over the last couple of days, I've heard things like Peyton Manning's selfish because he's keeping everybody else waiting. I've heard things like, well, Tim Tebow, I told you he can't play. Really? And it has nothing to do with any of this. Peyton Manning's not selfish. He got this done in 2 weeks' time very quickly. He's got to take care of his own interest. I thought he went through this process with class and dignity and did it pretty quickly. And as for Tebow, the fact that the Broncos signed Peyton Manning doesn't mean he can't play. It means they got one of the elite quarterbacks in the history of the NFL.
And that's all this means. Hey, like you say, I think he did it in great time. You have to understand, this guy had to travel, sit down, talk with teams. He had to work out for all these teams. He had a major injury that everybody had to make sure that it's right, because it's going to be a lot of money spent. A lot of money spent on this guy, so they need to make sure he is right, and he had to work out for these guys. That takes time. That's not something you're going to do overnight. As well, Peyton, he's making a decision for himself. You know, where he's wanting to be. He wanted to make sure he's comfortable and all. And for his Tebow, hey man, regardless of what these people say, you keep playing the way you playing, you keep improving, you keep learning the game, and you'll be okay. I'd love to see you down in Jacksonville.
Or Miami, both Florida teams that could use a quarterback. All right, free agent wide receivers are guys to take a look at as well. Here's the list. Vincent Jackson, of course, already signing with the Bucs. Colston, we know about. Reggie Wayne stayed home. Why? I have no idea. Brandon Lloyd to the Patriots. Robert Meacham to the Chargers. Robinson to the Jags. Mario Manningham moves on to the 49ers. Garcon to the Redskins. Good luck with that. Let's see how you face things without Manning, and Randy Moss coming back from retirement with the 49ers. Brian, anything of interest there?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the 49ers, they read the pulse in the NFC Championship game when your wide receiver only gets less than 5 yards. So they went out to try to improve it. And I just thought, well, we'll discuss it later, but I thought with Moss being there and when Manningham signed with the Niners, that the Niners might be that little caveat there for Peyton.
They were certainly positioning themselves, but he didn't pull the trigger. And in the final analysis, he stayed in the AFC, which everybody surmised he would do from day one. While the Saints are dabbling in free agency and the draft's coming up, there is football in New Orleans arena style. It started on Sunday as the New Orleans Voodoo 2012 debuted with a totally new look. New uniforms, new players, new coaching staff, much improved, I might add, and one of the more exciting arena games we've seen in a long, long time anywhere as they took on the Philadelphia Soul, widely considered to be the team to beat in the Arena Football League. And this was some game, and we're going to take a look at some of the highlights from the game as this is in the fourth quarter, 56-55 Philadelphia. What a tremendous catch here with one hand, interfered with, grabbed, everything imaginable, and Corey Payne still came up with this. This is a great catch, John.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I was there watching it. He got flagged, he got bumped, he got hit, he got held. He made a great play. I'm loving watching the Voodoo this year.
And here's the sack. Great job on the pressure. Favorite with the pressure inside, and that results in a sack as Henderson gets there and the Voodoo have them pinned back, but then Radabaugh comes up with this play, and Kellum knocks it away for the Voodoo at midfield. New Orleans is one down away from maybe clinching a win, but they converted, and they were able to get down the field. And the key here, John, is in arena football, you want to let them score as quickly as you can because you want enough time to score yourself, right?
There's no doubt. You know, you can score in 21 seconds. I've seen 3 touchdowns score, so I know what it takes. And they were trying to let them score, get the ball back, and they had an opportunity to win it, and unfortunately it was blocked.
Donovan Morgan of New Orleans from Sarah Reed that caught that touchdown pass from Philadelphia. Nice play here to Bush out of bounds right around midfield. They're already in field goal range, but this is what lost the game right here, John. Wide open for the winning touchdown. Look at this.
Yeah, he let him a little bit too much into it. I thought he should have had it. The wall's live. The young man caught it, but when he slammed to that wall, they just knocked it loose.
Here it is again. If he just lobs it to him, he's so wide open, but his throw carries him into the boards to make it a tough catch. And unfortunately, Corey Payne, who had a big game with 10 catches, couldn't hold on. They have a field goal blocked on the next play to end the game and lose 63-62, but it's pretty evident, Torrance, that they're a better football team this year.
Oh, yes. Whenever you can come out with the top teams, so say, Philadelphia's supposed to be this year, and to come out and play and put those type of numbers up and play that well, you have a chance this year.
And Brian, they hired a good coach in Pat O'Hara, who hired a legend in Tim Markham to come in. That guy's a genius, and they're going to do better this year.
I agree, and I think that first game reflected what those guys will mean to this franchise. And boy, I tell you what, you're right. You just lost that ball a little bit, John, like the touch you used to have, and we got a winner in the first game.
John and touch, are you kidding me?
Oh, he's got plenty of touch.
That's revisionist history, man. He tried to throw the ball through a brick wall. Come on, man. And now, John, about those uniforms.
The ugliest in the league, unbelievable. You can't even see the numbers. Great coaching staff, great team. Get rid of the uniforms. This is not what you want here in New Orleans.
This is Mr. Haberdashery right here.
At least put a white outline, right?
Yeah, white outline of numbers.
On the red numbers. That would work fine. I'm all for it. We'll take a time out here. When we return, Brian Ellie Walsh is on the hot seat about Peyton Manning, and did he make the right decision? As sportsNOLAtv continues from TGI Fridays in Metairie. Our sportsNOLAtv trivia question this evening. All 4 number 1 seeds have advanced to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA Men's Basketball Tournament. When was the last time the Final 4 included all 4 number 1 seeds? Answer is 2008, not too long ago. The Jayhawks, the Tigers, the Bruins, and the Tar Heels all getting there just 4 years ago. So it can happen, it has happened, and it might happen, but it's not likely. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, TGI Fridays in Metairie. Time now for our hot seat segment. Peyton Manning apparently has a new home. He's Rocky Mountain High. He's at altitude. He's outdoors, where it gets pretty cold at times, and where the ball flies all over the place. Denver, Mile High, whatever else they're calling the stadium these days. Brian Ellie Walsh, did Peyton Manning make the correct decision?
Ken, he's also Rocky Mountain Ridge. Of the 3 teams left for him to consider, and he whittled them down, there were a couple of clubs that one, Arizona took itself out of the sweepstakes. Miami, he told them no. But of the 3 left were Tennessee, San Francisco, and Denver. And I think of those 3, he made the right decision. And you could make a case for each of the three, but I think arguably that he went to a team that's got the best chance to compete for a Super Bowl here in New Orleans. How about a Manning Super Bowl in New Orleans? How about a Peyton Manning versus Drew Brees in New Orleans? There is that possibility because I think he's going to the best team with the best defense, and John Fox and his staff are excellent, and joining up with John Elway and the such, I think it's a great move. Of the three, wouldn't be our choice. Kenny, you and I talked about, we thought Arizona might be in the mix, but they had to make a decision by late afternoon on Friday to pick up that $7 million option on Kevin Cobb, and they did. Peyton wasn't ready to make a choice. So of the three, I would say yes, they did.
Oh, well, and I agree with you, Gray One. I agree with the Gray One on this one here. But initially, I thought the 49ers. If you look at the 49ers, the way their defense is built, and you look at the receivers that they brought in, you would think Peyton will make a perfect match just to get them over the top to get to the Super Bowl. But let's take a little step back. Let's look at the NFC conference. So let's look at who's all over there. Green Bay, New Orleans Saints, the Philadelphia Eagles. You have some teams. There's some hurdles. It's not going to be an easy just walk over conference just to get into the Super Bowl. So I don't think it was just written in stone just because Peyton is going to show up that the 49ers will be in. But looking at the Denver Broncos, you look at the AFC conference, it's not many teams. Pittsburgh's a team I think is kind of going down. I only look at the Jets. I don't see them as much of a push. I don't see anybody else. The only team I see is the Patriots really that's up there is the Elite and the Texans. So I don't see as much of a challenge on that side. And another thing, he doesn't have to play his brother into possibly the Super Bowl, which would be a great storyline for the NFL as well for the city of New Orleans, being that the Super Bowl will be in New Orleans.
Well, my whole totally take is this. I would have loved to see him in Tennessee. He played at University of Tennessee. Nashville is a perfect spot for him. They get to play against who? The Colts twice. The Jacksonville team twice. In Houston. So that's a league in a conference he's used to going up against. Money-wise, Bud Adams going to give him everything and then some. So right now, it didn't matter what team he went to overall. He wanted to stay in the AFC. I think Tennessee would have been a better choice because of better weather conditions, and he's closer to home.
I don't disagree with either one of you guys, but keep in mind that the one he certainly didn't want to go to an NFC team and compete against his brother. So I think automatically that kind of removes even the 49ers. They came in kind of were a secret agent in there, and I could see John Elway, John Fox, and Peyton Manning better than I can see Jim Harbaugh and Peyton Manning. And I agree with you totally in Tennessee, but really, of the two AFC franchises, I think Peyton realizes he's got 2-3 years at a high level of playing left in his career. He's got a much better chance to win it in Denver than he does in Tennessee.
I don't think he wanted to go back and play in the same division. I don't think he wanted to go and play against the Colts. I think he loved the city. I think he respected the city. They love him. And I don't think he wanted to go back and do that. And I think that's why Denver had the upper hand.
My whole take is this. I think the Oakland Raiders, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the San Diego Chargers are going to be more competition for the Denver Broncos. It wasn't a division that was taken by any of them. I think it's easier to get to the Super Bowl going through Jacksonville and the Colts.
Yeah, true. It might be, but I guess we're just trying to look in his head and what we think he's thinking, and I just think he didn't want to go back to
He's taking dollars here. He would have gotten that anywhere. Time for the judge to render a verdict here. I have no problem with Peyton Manning making a decision to go to Denver. Frankly, I'm a little bit surprised. They play outdoors. They play on grass. It gets cold in Denver late in the season. And it's outdoors, as I mentioned, and it's at altitude. How's he going to react to that? I don't know. He's played there before. Then you look at the personnel. The Denver Broncos, from my perspective, don't have very good receivers. I see Thomas, I see Decker, okay? Is that something to write home about? Not for me. Their running game, I see running backs that are average. I'm wondering about the surrounding parts. Is there something here we don't know about who else is going to join him in Denver? I think there's more to this story because, frankly, on paper, as I look at this, I clearly would have picked Tennessee if I was going to stay in the AFC. They've got Chris Johnson. They run the ball well. They've got better receivers overall, in my opinion. And they have a good defense. And the weather's not as harsh, and there is a hometown feel there. One other item about this. I know this is going to sound really weird, but Peyton Manning is succeeding a legend in Tim Tebow in Denver, who is absolutely rabidly beloved if things don't go well early on for Peyton Manning, although I fully expect they will, he's not going to be very popular. Obviously, he has thick skin to make this decision, so I commend him for that. If he wanted to go to a Super Bowl, San Francisco clearly was the best pick among those three. Like Brian, I thought Arizona would have been the best fit overall with a hellacious defense, good receivers, and playing indoors. But it goes to show you how much we know. Absolutely nothing. With that, it is time now for our Marvelous Minute with Marvelous Marvin LeBlanc. Marvin LeBlanc is a motivational speaker and author who will always leave you feeling better than when you first walked in the door. Go to marvinleblanc.com/TV to find out more about this inspiring friend of ours, Marvin LeBlanc.
Good afternoon, Kenny. Good afternoon, you wonderful panel. Tonight, what we should talk about is this title in this segment should be Passing the Buck. Well, obviously, these bucking Broncos passed the buck to Peyton Manning, and today's story is what has happened with Peyton Manning. My question to you is, what is your story? What is your story for tomorrow? You see, in Peyton's case, he had to make a decision, and his decision was based not on money, like some of our panelists said, but based on winning. That's what it's all about for him at his stage in his career. Well, in your stage of your career, is it really all about winning for you? Or are you putting yourself in the right place to succeed? The other thing that's going to be the story of the future is the Tim Tebow story, because I'll go on record and say somebody is going to pick up a bona fide winner. Oh, he doesn't look good and he's not perfectly pretty. He just wins. So what about you? Do you just win? Do you work hard and practice your craft? Because if you're a little rusty, now might be the time to get that sportsNOLAtv early bird special for Marvelous Leaders coaching program. I'm Marvin LeBlanc. Go to marvinleblanc.com, and remember, anytime you show up at TGIF for our broadcast, you always get a free book. Now back to Kenny Trahan.
Well done, Marvin. You've inspired me again, and I believe this is a horse thing, guys. Colts, Broncos. Colts, Broncos. He wanted to keep it in the horse family, obviously, right?
Yes. Hey, not only that, Broncos are used to be known as the Orange Crush.
Well, Kenny, it's all about winning.
He wants to ride off it to the sunset.
Oh, this is getting thick here. It's getting too thick. Hey, John, before we go to break, Tim Tebow. It reminds me a little bit of you. You throw the ball better than he does, frankly, but in terms of style, you were a scrambling quarterback. You weren't going to sit around and wait for things to happen. You were going to try to make things happen. You can relate to that. Therefore, my guess is you think this guy can play.
Well, there's no doubt Tim Tebow can play. The question is, when he does play, where he's going to play it, and will they adjust the offense for him? He's not a drop-back passer. You want to go to shotgun, that's great, but he's got to be able to throw the football what these people like. And you got to be able to have a system where he can run the football a little bit. What team he goes to, will they change that up?
We shall see. Hard to fathom and play for John Fox, the most conservative coach in the NFL. Back in just a moment to talk about the NCAA basketball tournament on sportsNOLAtv. Check out St. Ange's Javon Felix and Riverside's Ricardo Gathers on Sunday, April 1st at UNO Lakefront Arena as they take on the nation's top high school juniors and seniors in the All-American Championship. Tickets are now on sale at the Lakefront Arena box office or through Ticketmaster.com. The All-American Championship, Sunday, April 1st at UNO's Lakefront Arena. Ken Trahan with you, sportsNOLAtv, TGI Fridays, Veterans in North Holland in Metairie. We are down to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. You got a lot of chalk there scratching the board, but you also have some real surprises, which is what makes this tournament just great. As we take a look at the brackets for the tournament, here we go. In the West Regional, it's Michigan State, the 1 seed, against Louisville, and Rick Pitino, the 4 seed. Great matchup of coaches, Izzo, Pitino. And then Buzz Williams, a former UNO coach at Marquette, taking on Billy Donovan and the Florida Gators in the regional finals, of course, coming up on Saturday. East Regional at Boston, the top seed Syracuse against the 4th seed Wisconsin. They always defend you and make it ugly. 6th seed Cincinnati taking on in-state rival Ohio State as part of the Ohio Invitational of the Final 16 and the regional final Sunday in the East. Taking a look at the Midwest, the number 1 seed North Carolina with a huge injury to set them back against Cinderella, Ohio University. And then North Carolina State, whom I predicted would make the Sweet 16. They're there, and they'll take on the Kansas Jayhawks, and I think NC State has a real chance to win that one as well. And then going to the South at Atlanta, the number 1 overall seed Kentucky with a rematch against Indiana. Bob Knight won't even say the name Kentucky. And number 3 seed Baylor. Coach Drew doing a great job. That's where Ricardo Gathers is heading to take on Xavier. And again, another team from Ohio. Brian, we made our picks, of course, and we look good in some instances, and we look pretty stupid in other instances.
Yeah.
I think, to me, the biggest thing now is that Kentucky was my pick to win it. I've seen nothing to dispel that, but I picked them to beat North Carolina in the final. I don't know, or I don't think that's going to happen now with the injury they suffered.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens to Kendall Marshall if he can play with the cast on his non-shooting hand. And of course, Henson is also hurt, so they've got some inherent problems there as they go into the Sweet 16. Syracuse will be out without Fab Melo, so there's. I think it's right for a team to come out of nowhere to play Kentucky for the championship.
John?
Well, right now, you look at it, the top 4 teams are in there, but there's a lot of issues on the board. Everybody's looking at Kentucky. Kentucky's probably the team to beat. Well, you got to be surprised. Cincinnati, watch out for Cincinnati. Watch out for Baylor. Marquette. I mean, there's so many teams, underdog teams. I'm loving it at the Sweet 16 right now. I think it's going to be a great final.
Hey, what about Xavier and Cincinnati? You talking about 2 teams got some fight in them? They actually had a fight.
Some fight in them. Oh, nice choice of words there, yes.
They had some fight. But who expect these 2 teams to be here? And now they're in and have an opportunity to go to the Elite 8 and hopefully to the Final 4.
Brian, I look at this situation, and I think there are some teams that have a chance to break through. I mentioned North Carolina State. I really think they can beat Kansas. And if they beat Kansas, they might play North Carolina again, a team they should have beaten last time around, and a team that's banged up, and a team they know very well.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with John, too. Kenny, I think Cincinnati's one of those teams you want to look at. Marquette's one of those teams you want to look at. Of course, my alma mater, IU, is going up against Goliath here in Kentucky, but I think there will definitely be one of those teams we're mentioning in the Final 4 here in New Orleans.
Just goes to show you, John, Marquette. LSU beat Marquette this year. It's their best win that they had under Trent Johnson, so you never know. And of course, as mentioned, Marquette coached by Buzz Williams, who coached at UNO for a year.
I had Marquette picked as one of my teams early, like one of the dark horses before. I said, watch these guys, they might. But there's so many teams: Xavier, Cincinnati, North Carolina State. Baylor's another team. You watch for these teams. Right now, this doesn't mean anything. Next week, after the Final 16, when you get to the Elite 8, that's when you'll find out who's in.
I like Baylor, Torrance, but you just need an eye adjustment with those yellow uniforms. You know what I mean?
Oregon Junior.
Yeah. Baylor's an athletic team. I like them, but they've been a little inconsistent for me. I don't see them going any farther, but my thing, I like Kentucky. I like to see them there. The only thing about Marquette, they're going to have to play Kentucky.
I just have a
and
question.
that matchup is going to.
I got a question for Forkhead. He said he liked Marquette,
yes,
but
sir.
Did you pencil Marquette in?
Go look at my sheet. They're not penciling
Is
to
this
win
the
it.
sheet of
They're not winning the national championship because the SEC team will win the national championship.
Well, let me tell you about
They're in the same
coaches, too, and coaches make a difference. I mentioned that matchup with Pitino and Izzo. Look, those guys know how to get it done. Let me tell you about somebody else that's flying below radar. They nearly made it last year going through New Orleans, and they got a chance to sneak up and do it again, and that's Billy Donovan and the Florida Gators. They're completely overlooked because Kentucky dominated the SEC, but they've quietly gone along. Look, Norfolk State took out Missouri, my Final 4 pick, and then Florida just destroyed Norfolk State and looked really good in the process. Florida's the kind of team, Torrance, that if they shoot the ball well, they can beat anybody.
That's the thing. These guys shoot the 3-point with volume. They're going to shoot it 25 plus times on you. And if they're on, believe me, you're going to have problems. Now, I'm with you on that. Billy Donovan, coach is a very good coach. And when that team is on, you have problems.
I had the wrong Florida team, Brian. South Florida did well, and I like Florida State. It's Florida. It's the one we should have kept our eyes on.
I wasn't giving Michigan State and Tom Izzo enough credit going into the conference, into the big tournament. I just think that they're going to come out of that regional and represent that regional in the Final Four.
And of course, it's of even greater interest to us this year because the Final Four is right here in New Orleans, which is going to be a significant event, and New Orleans will do it well, which will enable New Orleans to get in the rotation again and get the Final Four back once more down the road. Women's Final Four coming here next year. So again, the big events just keep on rolling in to New Orleans, and isn't that great? Got Arena Bowl here this year too. So a little bit of everything with the Super Bowl capping it all off coming up next February. Of course, our other major league franchise, the New Orleans Hornets, they get displaced when there are major events at New Orleans Arena like the SEC tournament. They went on the road, and the Hornets have shown some signs of life most recently. The biggest sign of life is getting a new lease with the state through 2024. Awesome news, Brian. This is ensuring the future of this franchise.
Step one was so essential. Now step two is, of course, identifying ownership, and that's hopefully going to happen within the next 2 weeks. But you know what? We give kudos to the state, everybody that was involved in securing the Hornets at least through 2024.
Yep, ownership next. That is the next step. Let's take a look at the Hornets and what transpired this past week. Of course, 73-71 loss to lowly Charlotte. That's a bad loss. 71 points, that's really ugly. And then, of course, the game where they played a spirited game against the Lakers, had the lead much of the way, let it get away in overtime, 107-101. Jarrett Jack became the first player to score 30 points for the Hornets this season in that defeat. So you were encouraged there, but you quickly got discouraged because then they lost to lowly Washington, which isn't a bad thing. More on that coming up. 99-89, Wizards over the Hornets. And then the Hornets went on the road and they did something they haven't done all year. They came back in the fourth quarter and won a game on the road. Chris Kaman, Marco Bellinelli, 20 points each. They beat the Nets 102-94. And of course, some highlights from that game. Kaman has really been a tremendous asset. They're trying to keep him long-term now, Brian.
Yeah, I was glad to see them keep him. You know, there was a chance that he'd been talk about him being on the trading block. You know, in fact, they rested him for 2 weeks and brought him back. So it's good. I think that might tell us who that new ownership is as well, Kenny.
Well, I think there's something to be said there. He loves Mike Dunleavy, and if that group's involved, Marco Bellinelli draining that three off the bounce, which doesn't happen very often. Did a little Italian dance after this. Look at that, after he makes the shot. Big job there. But hey, John, it wouldn't surprise me if the California group now would include Gary Swest as part of their group, and he becomes a minority owner, much like he was under George Shinn.
Well, I have two friends of mine who wear nice suits when they go to the game, and they come up to me all the time and say, the ownership's going to come out of California. I think that's what they're looking at. And they wanted Kaman to stay here. I think you'll see the California group come in, and Swest will have a piece of it, maybe Morris Bart as well.
I believe that's what's going to happen. Let's take a look at the Hornets' upcoming schedule. And Torrance, it's very interesting because Golden State's here on Wednesday, but check it out. Look who's here on Thursday. Chris Paul and the Los Angeles Clippers. I wonder what kind of reception he will get.
I wonder what kind of reception he will get also. We love Chris Paul. He did a lot for the city and on. We understand his business. And with the league taking over the team, that put him in a bad predicament. But hopefully we'll get, the fans will give him some cheers and he can he lose the game.
And then San Antonio coming in on the back end. And San Antonio, by the way, they're a real contender to win it all. They just keep rebuilding and keep getting it done. Just when you're ready to bury them, they're Lazarus, and they're back from the dead. Tony Parker has had a remarkable season for the Spurs this year. We'll take a timeout when we return. College baseball and more as Sports NOLA TV continues from TGI Fridays in Metairie. In here, it's always Friday. TGI Fridays. You can hear how excited everyone is. 3330 Veterans Boulevard in Metairie. We kind of feel that way too. I think we ought to let out a big screen. 504-887-7788. TGI Fridays in Metairie. Again, thanks to Ronnie Bouvier and his fine staff for having us here on Sports NOLA TV once more. Ken Trahan with you. College baseball. I had a chance to go to the box this past weekend to catch the middle game of the LSU Mississippi State series. And let's take a look at some of the college baseball coming up this week. The Tigers 16-4. Southern, that game has been moved to Tuesday now because of a rain situation, so they're playing on Tuesday. And then this weekend at Auburn. Auburn, by the way, beat Ole Miss 2 of 3 in opening weekend. Sorry, John, of SEC play. Tulane at 14-6. They got a tough game Tuesday in Lafayette in a ballpark where the ball goes nowhere at ULL. And then coming in this weekend. UMBC for 3 games, and Tulane will host those. So, Brian, again, where LSU is concerned, it's pretty obvious. They're going to live and die with their pitching and defense. Runs will be hard to come by in the SEC.
Yeah, you know, they looks like Aaron Nola, the freshman, is going to end up being their Sunday starter. So that's going to be good. He took it on the chin yesterday against Mississippi State, but hopefully things are going to get better.
But here's what he did, John. He gave up 5 runs in the first inning, and then he pitched 5 more innings and didn't give up an earned run, which tells me he's got some toughness. He's got a bottom to him to be able to withstand that and stay in there and give his team 6 innings.
Slade's a young man right now. He's a freshman coming in there. It's kind of hard being the leader of the group and you're a freshman in the SEC, but give him time. You know doggone well LSU will be there. They're hitting, coming around, but these new bats right now, it's going to be tough to hit the ball out of the park.
Tulane swept Brown this past weekend, Torrance, and they got ULL. That's a tough road game for them before UMBC comes in this weekend. Tulane's positioned to do some good things this year and possibly make the tournament as well.
Well, the thing is being consistent. You have to be consistent. When you get these 3-game series, you have to take 2 out of them. And I think if they can take 2 out of this next series, they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I should also mention that Delgado is playing well early in the season. A lot of young men who are local players, as always, and some Jesuit kids that were part of a state championship team last year that have played very well for Joe Sherman's team, Brian.
Yeah, Joe Sherman does a great job year in, year out. You know, he just represents everything good about baseball.
Yeah, he really does. And of course, you got Ben Franklin. You're over at Kirschwinny a little bit playing some games, right?
Yeah, we just haven't been able to win at Kirschwinny.
Those 3-hour, 20-minute games, man. Come on, man. What's up with that? Can you imagine seeing him in a coaching box like we did with the helmet on and with the shorts on and the beard sticking out?
Shorts?
I mean, I thought it was House of David playing. You know what I mean?
Not the shorts.
That's an old reference there. I don't know if anybody got it. Brian did, I'm sure.
I got it.
Is that what you're all about here? Is it a House of David thing?
Well, I'll tell you what, I got the Ark parked out back, and we're ready to go. They need me out in the field. That's what Ben Franklin needs right now.
It may happen, but college baseball has changed dramatically with these bats, as you alluded to. No question that you can see the results impacting the scores. And, of course, home runs have really disappeared to a large degree. Mason Katz has 4 to lead LSU. He had a bomb in the game I was at on Saturday, but you may end up with guys leading their teams in home runs with like 8 to 10 this season. I don't think that's what the fans want to see. That's what I say, whatever that means. Brian Ellie Walsh, always a pleasure. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Kenny. Always a pleasure. Great day as we have today. Outstanding.
Torrance Small, keep up the good work, my friend.
Oh, enjoy. Great day. Looking forward to seeing some of these games, where everybody's going to fall, and also to see if we're going to get Drew Brees signed since we got Peyton.
And John Forcade, Fairways and Greens, my friend.
I hear that. Welcome. Thanks for being here with Mo, Curly, and Larry. Enjoy it.
All right, for Mo, Larry, and Curly, or I think Shempson here somewhere. I can't try in. Thanks for joining us. Be a good sport. God bless you one and all. Rounding third and heading home. So long.